Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video, which is going to be my top 5 foundations for 2024. I like to do my top 5 foundations annually just because it really helps me to have time to really consider my thoughts and see what I'm using day to day, see what I'm loving, compare properly any new foundations that come along and really make sure they're solidly in my top 5 and not just there momentarily because I got carried away with something shiny and new. So today I'm going to be showing my top 5 foundations for my everyday makeup. The top 5 that I use day to day, my most loved, my most treasured, and all of the reasons why, along with some comparisons and runners up. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so I have had some movement. I just looked back at my 2023 top 5 foundations and we do have 2 newcomers and things have moved around quite a bit. So before we dive into all of these luscious foundations, I just want to give you a bit of information on my skin type, what I look for in a foundation, my preferences, so you know whether these foundations might also work for you or whether you're looking for something altogether different. So I'm 40 years old. Of course, I have signs of aging. I have fine lines and texture. My skin type remains pretty balanced. I don't have excessive oily skin. I don't have any dryness, and I'm really not sensitive to anything at all. So I'm very lucky. My skin is fairly happy most of the time. I do have rosacea, if that makes you feel slightly less cross with me for having a balanced, normal skin type. And that definitely for me is much worse in the winter months. And I also in the summer months get some melasma, which I try as hard as I can to keep at bay with SPF, but it does definitely like to pop up, especially on my forehead during the summer. So when it comes to my preferences, I do prefer a sort of thinner, liquidy, more watery consistency foundation, something very light, and I like a really nice natural luminous finish, something that looks very skin-like, very natural, but has a beautiful luminosity to it to give me some sort of life to my skin. Because I don't have much oil production going on throughout the day on my face, I do like some luminosity in the foundation. Otherwise I feel like foundations can look flat or heavy or dry on my skin. As far as coverage, I typically like a medium coverage. I enjoy a full coverage at times, but I do want a bit more than light, typically day to day, just to even out my skin tone, to tone down any redness that's going on and just even everything out. So essentially my priorities are something quite thin, something very natural, something with a luminous finish, and a solid medium or higher coverage. That's typically what I go for day to day. So let's start off with like the also-rans, the foundations that I had in my sort of consideration when I was looking at my top 5. I was going back and forth between all of these foundations, and these are the ones that just didn't quite make the cut, but I still love them, think they're great foundations, and I do use them a lot. So kicking us off, it's the Patrick Tar foundation, obviously new out this year. I have a really great shade in this. I will list all of my winter shades in the description box for all of these foundations because I'm currently in my winter skin tone, which is at the sort of deeper end of light medium. So light medium approaching medium depending on the range available, and I have a neutral olive undertone. So that is definitely something that comes into play with how much I enjoy foundations, because my undertone is typically quite challenging to match. So I have the shade 13 Olive in the Patrick Tar, and this is a really great shade match, really nice undertones for me. I love this foundation a lot. I just wish, for my personal preference, that it had a hair more coverage. I just always feel like I'm using a lot and still my skin tone is not completely evened out. I've still got some discoloration peeking through, still can see a bit of redness. And so that sort of stops it from being into my top 5. I do love to mix this in with a couple of other foundations that I'll mention in a minute. So it is getting used. I do enjoy it, but most of the time I'm craving like a hair more coverage for it to be like an absolute favorite. I really wish it had been more of a solid medium. Next up, a foundation that was in last year's top 5, I think I'm remembering that correctly, but it's the Haus foundation, and this definitely has enough coverage for me. I have the shade 260 for my winter skin tone in this foundation. I love the packaging. I do like the Patrick Tar packaging as well. The Haus Labs definitely feels weightier and more luxurious. Now this definitely has enough coverage for me. It's like a solid higher end of medium, easily buildable to full, gorgeous finish, exactly what I look for. Gorgeous bit of luminosity, natural on the skin while having a good amount of coverage. This was very, very close to making it in my top 5. It was, you know, in my top 5 last year. I'd probably say it's in 6th place. This year, there's not really anything I don't like about it. I just like the other 5 that I'm going to talk about as my top 5 a hair more. We're splitting hairs between this and some of these in my top 5. It was very close. I love it. It's a great foundation. Next up, the new Bobbi Brown foundation. This is the Weightless Skin foundation. I have the shade N50 Neutral. This is a gorgeous foundation. Really good, solid, medium to full coverage. Really nice sort of natural matte finish. As you may have guessed, this is slightly too matte to be like an absolute all-time favorite. But if I'm feeling in a bit more of a matte mood, or if I'm prioritizing how my makeup looks on camera, because a lot of the time more matte foundations look a bit more flawless on camera because the light, you know, can make glowier foundations look too glowy, or it can amplify texture, which you don't see in real life in natural daylight. So I do love this foundation. I think it's beautiful. It's very flawless, very flattering, but a hair too matte to be like my all-time favorite. Next, we have the La Mer foundation, which I think I tried properly for the first time this year. I love this. It's got such a beautiful natural finish. I had tried this previously when I was on holiday, but I had a sample at the airport, not in my right shade, so I didn't really give it like a fair go in my sort of everyday environment. So I think I tried this again for the first time this year, and I really love this. I think what's strange about this foundation is when it's freshly applied, when I first do my makeup, I always think I don't love it. When I'm looking in the mirror and my makeup is done, I think it's okay, and then give it like an hour or so. If I like catch my skin in the mirror, it wows me every time. It's just so perfecting and polished. It's not super glowy, but it's not flat matte either. It's probably a sort of natural finish, I would say. A very natural finish, very natural coverage, very lightweight, very thin texture, which I do typically tend to gravitate towards. And it's a beautiful, natural, polished foundation. Again, this could easily have been in my top 5 on any given day. I'd like it to have been slightly more luminous for it to be like an absolute all-time favorite, but it's a beautiful, natural, day-to-day foundation that's very flattering on mature skin, and it wears incredibly well as well. It just, polished is the perfect word for this foundation. Beautiful. And then we have my 2 matte babies, the Tom Ford Architecture Soft Matte and the Hourglass Soft Glow Foundation. I love both of these foundations. I think if I had to pick a favorite, I don't know if I can. I think I would go for the Tom Ford. The bottle is super luxurious and gorgeous, and I do love that thinner, liquidy texture that feels so lightweight on the skin. And you use such a small amount of this and you've got a gorgeous but somehow really natural full coverage, full glam finish foundation. These do have a very similar finish. They are more matte foundations, but they have like a luminous soft matte finish, which I think is beautiful. These are like my go-to event foundations. I've said this before, but if I'm going to like a wedding, a party, some sort of event where maybe a dinner and then drinks, or a dinner and dancing afterwards, these are the 2 foundations that I would be choosing between. They're both flawless, but very skin-like at the same time with their finish. Really beautiful. It's very much a full glam effect, but it kind of looks like a naturally full glam effect, if you know what I mean. It doesn't look like you've caked really heavy layers of foundation. It looks like you almost just could be that perfect, but it's very perfected. Really gorgeous, a really full beat, full glam effect. And the Tom Ford just wears insanely well. It wears unbelievably well. It's like impenetrable. I've worn this, I know I've mentioned this before, I've worn this on days where I fully thought I was going to look in the mirror and be mortified at what had happened to my makeup, only to find it was immaculate still. It wears unbelievably well. So if I want to really trust a foundation to hold up, regardless of the circumstances, the length of time, whether it's raining or snowing or it's boiling hot and humid, this is the one that I would reach for, because it's going to look flawless and it's going to photograph beautifully as well. I could say all of the same things for the Hourglass foundation. It just doesn't wear quite as well as the Tom Ford, and it's a thicker, heavier foundation. So I do tend to lean towards this one a little bit more over the Hourglass, but they're both glorious. I love to mix these with something like the Patrick Tar, because then I get a bit more coverage and a bit more glow. So these are sort of a perfect little combination. Again, both of these easily could have made it into my top 5. The only thing that's keeping them out is that slight lack of glow that I need. I crave it. So those were kind of my runners up, my consolation prizes, my ribbons, if you will, have gone to those foundations. I love them all. I use them all quite frequently. They didn't just quite make it into the top 5, but these are the foundations that did make it into my top 5 in 2024. Starting us off, it's the Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin Foundation. If you remember, I accidentally forgot about this foundation. This is what happens when you review products all the time. I loved this when it first came out. I reviewed it and I really enjoyed it. And then I think a load of foundations came out after it, and so I was constantly moving on and trying new foundations, and I just forgot how much I loved this one. I think also because it's kind of an unpopular opinion, not everybody loves this foundation. It almost persuaded me that I also didn't love it, because I was hearing so many people not like it, not get along with it, that I think I was like remembering it differently as to how I actually got along with it. And then I can't remember exactly why, but I picked it back up and just gave it another go one day and thought, why has this not been on my face this entire time? I don't understand, but I love it. It's so beautiful. It's got a sort of medium, easily buildable to full coverage, a gorgeous glowy finish, absolutely beautiful. It's juicy and fresh and healthy and glowy skin, exactly as described by Miss Tilbury. I love her undertones. I get on really well with Charlotte Tilbury's undertones. She always has some nice neutral, natural olive undertones in her foundation shades, so I really appreciate that. I also appreciate the squeezy tube, which isn't very luxurious and, you know, glorious to behold, but it's perfect for travel. You know, it's not going to smash in your bag and leak everywhere. It's compact. So I really like this for holiday as well. It's a beautiful foundation, very youthful of a finish, and it went, as soon as I remembered it existed and how I felt about it, it went straight back into my everyday rotation. Next up, let's talk about the Prada foundation. Now, the Prada foundation is the reason that the La Mer doesn't make it into my top 5, because for that everyday, polished, finessed, pretty, elegant type of foundation, if you know what I mean, the Prada does beat out the La Mer for me. This foundation is so natural and refined and elegant and polished, just like the La Mer, but this has a little more luminosity to the finish. It's definitely a more sort of natural satin as opposed to being glowy. The Charlotte Tilbury is much glowier, and the Prada is a hair glowier, more luminous than the La Mer. So it's got a gorgeous medium coverage, but it evens out skin tone beautifully. Absolutely flawless, very smooth and very healthy and youthful, but it not in a glowy sort of, you know, dewy way. It's very much a satin natural, like the most beautiful, polished, perfected skin. Wears really nicely, and it gets extra points for being refillable, because you know I have to purchase like 3 or 4 shades because my skin tone changes so much throughout the year. So I only need to buy the one actual bottle, and then I can store the refills in the different shades. So it saves me a lot of space and some money as well. So I really like that. I think they've got great shades, great undertones. Love this foundation when I'm looking for something natural and polished and put together. Maybe if I was going for a job interview, this is the foundation I would reach for. It's gorgeous. Next up, it's the Nars Light Reflecting Foundation. And last year there was very much a battle for the top 5 between this one and my Chanel number 1. I think last year I went with the Chanel number 1. This year, the Chanel number 1 is nowhere to be seen. I've actually used up my bottle of Chanel No. 1 and decided not to repurchase it, just because this year I very much fell in love and gained more of a preference for the Nars over the Chanel. They're kind of similar. They do the same thing-ish with some differences. They have a very similar finish, I think. This is a gorgeous glowy foundation again. This is full coverage. I would say the Chanel is more of a medium coverage. And I find that the reason I've used up the whole bottle is I feel like I have to use a lot of it to get the coverage I want. It can get there, but I feel like I have to use a lot, whereas with the Nars, I use a much smaller amount of foundation for the same amount of coverage. It covers everything, evens everything out. This is one I reach for when I want a more full glam look, but I still want to be glowy and luminous. It's not the longest wearing of my foundations, but typically day to day, I don't need my foundations to wear that well because, you know, I might put my makeup on at sort of 9 o'clock after the school run, film or edit, depending on what my day is looking like as far as YouTube, and then pick my children up at 3. And then most of the time after that, no one sees me unless we've got a club, you know, gymnastics or swimming or something, but I don't really care. I honestly don't care what anyone sees me looking like most of the time. So typically on a typical day to day, I really only need my foundation to look good for sort of 6 hours. So I don't usually need my foundations to be crazy 12 long hour wear. So this wears well enough for me. It's gorgeous and juicy on the skin, similar to the Charlotte Tilbury. Finish wise, this has more coverage. So if I want more coverage, I want to be more glam, I would go with the Nars. If I want full, the juiciest of skin, I will go with the Charlotte Tilbury. Next up, another new entry, and what a flipping new entry it was. It's the Dior Stick Foundation. I did not see this coming. I've said this so many times on my channel. I hate sticks, particularly with foundation. I don't like the process of swiping it on. They typically require more elbow grease to sort of get them flawless, melted into the skin, as opposed to a liquid that, you know, it melts into the skin very easily. Typically these need like buffing into the skin and they take a bit more time and effort to finesse. I've only ever enjoyed stick foundations to travel with. My Tom Ford stick foundation was my go-to for holidays, but Dior came along in 2024 and gave me the ultimate stick foundation. This blends like a dream, just as easy as a liquid. It's very quick. It's got gorgeous coverage straight off the bat, solid medium, easily buildable to full. And it gives me a similar finish to the Nars, to the Haus Labs, to the Charlotte Tilbury, to the Patrick Tar, that gorgeous glow to the skin, that fresh, juicy skin. It's so flawless, really great coverage, really easy to control because it's in stick form, so you can, you know, build up very strategically where you like without wasting anything. It doesn't take any extra effort. It's so quick and easy, and it's flawless, juicy, healthy, hydrated skin in a stick. It's my holy grail stick foundation. I immediately toppled the Tom Ford, I think just because of shades, but also it's smoother and creamier. You know, the Tom Ford is one of those that sort of has a bit of drag when you're applying it, and then it takes a bit of elbow grease to get it to work into the skin. Then it looks amazing, but the Dior, it glides across the skin like it's melting into the skin as you're applying it, and it really takes no effort whatsoever. Flawless, very kind to texture and lines, wears beautifully as well, almost sets itself so it doesn't move, it stays in place, it wears gorgeously. Other products love going on top of it, but it's still that beautiful, glowy, hydrated, healthy skin finish. And finally, of course, you know what this one's going to be. It's my Tom Ford Shade and Illuminate foundation. She lives and breathes and thrives to see another year in my holy grail top spot. It's been years. We've had such a long, healthy, committed relationship at this point. I love it so much. From the gorgeous, ridiculously luxurious packaging, the undertones of Tom Ford foundations, I always find my like perfect undertone match. This is a very watery, liquidy consistency, which I love. And this, above all of these other foundations I'm talking about today, it has the most perfect coverage and perfect finish, exactly what I'm looking for. So it has a sort of medium coverage, but maybe the lighter end of medium, but at that level of coverage. What I've said is so special about this foundation above all else. I've said it time and time again. I use a small amount and have a lighter end of medium coverage, but it evens everything out so easily with such a small, light, natural amount of product that I get to see my skin through it, but still look flawless and perfected and evened out with a small amount, with a light, natural looking skin-like coverage and the most gorgeous goddess glow to the skin without having to layer and build it up and use a lot of it. A bottle of this lasts me for so long. I haven't used up a bottle this year, I don't think, because it's just, you don't need that much to get the look that I love, and it wears incredibly well. I don't have to wait for it to settle into the skin. It doesn't get too shiny throughout the day. It's just perfect, right in my sweet spot of the finish. Is absolutely glorious. It remains my favorite, my holy grail, many years on now. And so there you have it. That is my top 5 foundations for 2024, as well as a whole load of other alternatives if you're looking for something more matte than I like, or less coverage than I like, or more coverage than I like, something more long wearing. Hopefully there's an option in this video for anything that you might be looking for. So please let me know what your holy grail foundation is currently in the comment section down below. Is it the same as one of mine? Is it something totally different? Please let me know your favorite foundations in the comment section down below. But thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.